your blood health and your heart health and your sleep habits all affect your well-being. So if somebody comes in and they feel good and they test out at, 350 natural levels, that's not necessarily a guarantee that they should get on hormone replacement therapy. And if somebody feels like crap and they have low levels, there's no guarantee that getting on tests is going to make them feel better. How's it going? I am Judd Lienhard from the Judd Lienhard Podcast. I get a lot of great questions, so we're here to do another Q&A. But before I jump into that, I'd like to let y'all know about a very cool opportunity. The first one's being held in June. It's a 3-day training experience at my personal gym. The first one is almost full. We do have a couple of slots left. It's invite only. So if you want the opportunity to attend that one or possibly be waitlisted for future events as they come up, DM me on Instagram, ATX, that's 3 letters, for more information and to learn more. It will be held at my personal gym in Austin, Texas. I'm very excited because I love doing this stuff, but I would love training in person even more. And I'm really looking forward to getting back into that. Mia, help them out with what I missed. Anything?
Oh, I wasn't paying attention.
Just DM me ATX and you'll find out more. It's cool. Trust me.
All right. First question up. Do you take any supplements? If so, what are they?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I take a lot of supplements. So I'm a supplement guy. All right. So what do I take? I'm going to forget some. In the morning, I take something for my cough. No, vitamin D3, K2. I take fish oil. I take methyl B complex vitamin. I take DMAE for my brain health. I don't think it's
might want to up that one.
Not sure about the dosage on that one. I take taurine sometimes. What else do I take? I feel like I'm forgetting some. Methyl blue every once in a while. I take NMN. That hopefully is getting converted into NAD+. I feel like I'm forgetting a couple, but those are my basics. At night, I take magnesium. I take zinc. I take inositol. I take glycine. I feel like that's it. I'm probably forgetting one there too, but those are my basics, and I take creatine before I train. I think that's about it.
Okay, I'm trying to find the question. I can't, but someone did ask, is there anything you drink specifically while you train?
Is there anything? Sometimes I do drink one of those like non-stim pre-workouts. I do feel like it kind of helps with my pump and stuff a little bit. So sometimes I'll drink that, but really what I always drink is Element because really sodium is the biggest performance enhancer prior to training.
Okay, next question. What's the best 3-day workout routine for general strength, size, and performance, cardio not included?
Well, 3-day workout routine, in my opinion, it's got to be total body because it's the most flexible, it's the most adaptable, it's the most forgiving if you have to miss a day. So if you're doing a split there and push-pull legs, go figure we always put legs on Friday and that's the day we always miss. And then we never go pick up legs the next weekend. We just push it off again or something like that. So total body, because frequent stimulus is better for strength gains. You get less sore after your workouts per body part. But what I like to do the total body and then have a focus too. So like total body push focused, total body pull focused, total body leg focused.
Okay.
I stop abruptly.
You just got to cue me. Next.
I'll cue the shit out of you.
I was falling asleep over here. Just kidding.
Just cue the fuck out of you.
Would it be wise to use BPC 157 post-op since PT is moving slow? I am in my 40s. Thank you in advance.
Yeah, I'd say why not? It's getting a lot of pushback lately, but mainly because of the lack of studies on humans. But there's a lot of case studies out there. There's a lot of strong evidence for animals. It appears to be very safe. It's relatively affordable. I use it. I feel like it helps with my systemic inflammation a lot. But there's going to be limited healing benefits from things that aren't like soft tissue. So if it's a bone thing, it's going to have very limited benefits for that. But yeah, it probably couldn't hurt.
Was that all?
Next.
I've been overwhelmed getting back into the gym to rebuild 3 months post C-section. Any advice?
Yeah, so I would start by not worrying about getting into the gym. Just reestablish an exercise habit, preferably outside if able, where you can do something that you don't dread consistently and reestablish the habit. and just build from there. So like if you're outside and you're going for hikes, then maybe add a little bit of weight to your hike, like a weight vest or a small backpack or something. Then pick out spots where you can comfortably do some easy push-ups and lunges along the walk. And then when you're ready, maybe one day a week, you go into the gym and just do the exercises you're very comfortable with. Don't try to push it too hard, and don't do things that obviously that cause you pain or discomfort. And just be consistent, be persistent, but be very patient as well, and things will come back.
Switching gears. This guy asks, what's your favorite biscuit to eat? Wait, the only reason I'm asking is because you know what biscuit you really liked?
I know, it's that almond. It's funny because I want to make fun of that. Like, who has a favorite biscuit? But I do have a favorite biscuit. What is, it's like an almond flour one, right?
Yeah.
They're so delicious. Do you even know what they're called?
I can't remember. They're in the white bag in the frozen section at Whole Foods. No, but what I thought of, that place in...
I was going to say in South Carolina.
At Summer Strong.
Do you remember what it's called?
Bubba's?
Might be, but what is it in Lexington, South Carolina?
Lexington, South Carolina.
There's a place in Lexington, South Carolina. We think it might be called Bubba's. It has the best biscuits I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, if you go to Summer Strong.
That guy got more than he bargained for.
Yeah. Okay, next question. And I'm totally going to butcher whatever this word is, but there's a chance you'll know what it is. Thoughts on enclomiphene?
Oh, clomiphene.
Enclomiphene.
But say it one more time just for our entertainment.
Let me finish the question. If you're a man in your 20s but can't commit to TRT yet.
First of all, are you sure that you need TRT in your 20s? Have you gotten your tests checked? Secondly, so there's kind of two different types there's clomiphene and clomid. I think they're kind of similar, and people don't have a great response to one of those, and they have a better response to the other one. I can't remember which one. I tried clomid, I think, in my late 30s before I got on testosterone, and I didn't notice much of a difference or have a great experience. But, obviously there's 3 steps to this. So you want to raise your testosterone as much as you can naturally just to feel better and, better sleep, zinc and magnesium supplementation, vitamin D supplementation, things like that, stress management. The next step is to maybe try things that can get your natural test moving better, and that is clomiphene and also HCG shots. And then the final step should be testosterone replacement therapy or hormone optimization therapy. It's a better term, in my opinion. And a lot of people, they'll do that in conjunction with HCG, especially if they want to stay fertile while they're on testosterone therapy. I don't have a strong opinion on it. It's one of those things, though, where you can try it, and if you don't like it or see results, you can discontinue use, and it won't negatively impact your hormones for a long period of time.
This guy writes, real talk. Oops. Run one real cycle and then maintain with TRT, ?
Okay, so what he's referring to there is something called blasting and cruising in bro speak. I would say...
Is that one real cycle? Is that what that means?
Yeah, so the difference between like a cycle and TRT is supposed to replace your natural testosterone levels, which really that's a misnomer because we have no way of knowing what your natural testosterone levels were unless you were checked, which you probably weren't. And it should really be like hormone optimization. So using the right amount of exogenous hormones, and it doesn't just have to be testosterone. There are some others that have therapeutic benefits as well. I won't get into it, that some doctors may prescribe. But testosterone is by far the safest and healthiest exogenous hormone you can take, for an anabolic hormone anyway. And so, the purpose there is to take enough, whatever that may be, to maximize feelings of well-being while you minimize side effects. And for most people, that's going to fall somewhere between the 100 and 300 milligrams a week level. Very few people can do more than 300 milligrams a week consistently without side effects starting to occur. It will shut down your natural testosterone production, though, just so you know that. And then when you discontinue use, it will stay low for a very long period of time unless you do something called post-cycle therapy, which I don't want to get into the whole hormone thing. But so basically what I'm trying to say, though, it's a big commitment and consideration to make before you start. Running a cycle is when you do way higher doses, super physiological, in order to specifically get strength and size gains. And to put things into perspective, a very high TRT dose is something like 300 milligrams a week. That's higher than most doctors will prescribe. A beginner steroid cycle is double that. So you're looking at 500 to 600 milligrams minimum of just testosterone, often combined with some kind of oral, which is like usually DHT based, like a Winstrol or an Anavar. Most people go with Winstrol because it's cheaper. And something that is like a nandrolone based. So something like Deca, or, if you're insane, Trenbolone. So normally it's a cycle is combining those three types of steroids together because they accentuate the benefits of each other. The orals are going to have, they're DHT based. So if you're predisposed to balding, you might lose your hair. You're going to start getting acne probably. I got really bad acne just on testosterone. And then the orals are also they're 17 alkaloids, so they're going to be hard on your liver. If you're young, you can probably tolerate it for a short amount of time. If you're older, it's going to crush your lipid profile. The nandrolones are normally fairly well tolerated with the exception of Trenbolone. But they have progesterone side effects potentially. So you're looking at two entirely different ball games there, and you're not going to keep your gains at all going on TRT after you do your cycle. You're going to gain a bunch of weight. Mostly going to be water weight, a lot of muscle on your cycle, and when you go to TRT, you're eventually going to lose all of your gains or most of your gains. You're not going to maintain that. So just so it's a personal decision you have to make. I would talk to your loved ones and stuff first. Like if you're married or in a committed relationship, I don't think it's necessarily fair to your significant other to start doing anabolics without their input and their agreement first. And then just really study all of the effects, all of the doses, and go into it with your eyes open.
Okay. I don't know if you addressed this, but what level of free T and or total T constitutes you need to get on TRT?
That's kind of a loaded question because there's so many things that affect our sense of well-being and our performance other than just those two numbers. So one person might have a total test and free test of one number, and the other person might literally have half that number and feel better. So it's way more complicated than that, and a lot of it has to do with your natural androgen sensitivity, either genetically or through a life of training. So a lot of lifelong weightlifters will actually have lower free test and test in general than people that never lift weights because their bodies have downregulated their testosterone production because they don't need as much because they respond better to it. So generally speaking, the less of a hormone we can make to achieve the same results equals less side effects. And so our body wants to do that, i.e. less conversion to estrogen and things like that. And so a lot of it has to do with like, what's your estrogen numbers? So a lot of times if estrogen isn't bad for men, we need estrogen. So a lot of times if your estrogen is really high, you'll produce less tests because estrogen is a very healthy and also it's an anabolic hormone. But sometimes that men have naturally low estrogen levels, they either have to produce more test, or if they get on test, they'll have better results because some of that test will get converted to estrogen and they'll feel better. So basically what I'm trying to get at here is there is a lot. And also your blood health and your heart health and your sleep habits all affect your well-being. So if somebody comes in and they feel good and they test out at 350 natural levels, that's not necessarily a guarantee that they should get on hormone replacement therapy. And if somebody feels like crap and they have low levels, there's no guarantee that getting on tests is going to make them feel better. But generally speaking, if I have to give you a number, a healthy level of natural test is anywhere above 500 nanograms per deciliter with the corresponding amount of free test. I think that's 10% or something like that. So yeah, 500 is the number you're probably looking for, but there's a lot more to consider.
Okay, this will be the last question of this episode. Can you be systematic strong without heavy squats and deadlifts?
Can you be systemically strong without? No. No, you can't. Because those are the two primary movement patterns that enhance systemic strength. Now, do you need to do them like traditional barbell? No, you don't either. But I don't know. I guess if you do a lot of lifting in general, like in the real world, like you're a construction worker or you're on a farm or something like in the 1800s, or you're doing unconventional kettlebell movements, which those should probably include hinging and squatting anyway, then you can be fairly systemically strong, but you're not going to build a significant amount of systemic strength or systematic strength in your words.
Well, I just read the question. It wasn't my words.
Oh, okay. Systemic strength. Yeah, I mean, you got to squat and deadlift, man, like, or hinge and squat. But you don't necessarily need to do conventional like barbell. You can use goblet form. You can use searcher form. You can use frog stance deadlifts. But a lot of people have a lot of issues with deadlifts. So maybe if you can just do squatting and other forms of hinging, you can stay fairly systemically strong that way. That's all I have for the day. I rambled long enough. I'll let you guys go. But I appreciate the questions, and hit me up again if you're interested in that 3-day training opportunity or ones in the future. DM me on Instagram at ATX. That's ATX. Y'all have a good day.